Hey, this is Matthew, the pastor of Acts Church in East London. You're listening to The Script, the message podcast from our church. Each week we dip into the Word and see how we can live richer, fuller lives and become the people that God wants us to be. We hope this message encourages you. Be blessed.
Matthew chapter 18, verses 21 to 35. And it reads in this way. At that point, Peter got up the nerve to ask, "Master, how many times do I forgive a brother or sister who hurts me? 7? Jesus replied, 7? Hardly. Try 70 times 7. The kingdom of God is like a king who decided to square accounts with his servants. As he got underway, one servant was brought before him who had run up a debt of $100,000. He couldn't pay it up, so the king ordered the man, along with his wife, children, and goods, to be auctioned off at the slave market. The poor wretch threw himself at the king's feet and begged, "Give me a chance and I'll pay it all back." Touched by his plea, the king let him off, erasing the debt. The servant was no sooner out of the room when he came upon one of his fellow servants who owed him $10. He seized him by the throat and demanded, "Pay up now." The poor wretch threw himself down and begged, "Give me a chance and I'll pay it all back." But he wouldn't do it. He had him arrested and put in jail until the debt was paid. When the other servants saw this going on, they were outraged and brought a detailed report to the king. The king summoned the man and said, "You evil servant, I forgave you your entire debt when you begged me for mercy. Shouldn't you be compelled to be merciful to your fellow servant who asked for mercy?" The king was furious and put the screws to the man until he paid back his entire debt. And that's exactly what my Father in heaven is going to do to each one of you who doesn't forgive unconditionally anyone who asks for mercy. Most of you have heard my story before, but if this was the first time, everybody thinks the same thing. What an idiot. Like, how do you mess up a chance like that? An opportunity to start again, to have everything forgiven. I was free and easy, and now I find myself here in prison. But not just in prison, being tortured as well. Everybody was talking about this when it happened. It was all over the group chats, all over WhatsApp. Everyone was saying, "Have you seen this? Have you heard about this guy?" But people were calling me the stupid servant, or talking about how that's what greed gets you. There were opinion pieces, things on Instagram and TikTok, people doing story time, just discussing exactly what I had done and what kind of idiot I'd been. It was meant to be the best day of my life. It hadn't started out like that. It started out as it kind of finished, one of the worst days of my life. But it really should have been one of the best. One that kind of went down in history. One that people would come up to me and afterwards and ask, "Wow, how did that happen to you? How did you feel?" But I ruined it all. Managed to mess everything up. In fact, I know that some of you just think I'm stupid in general. Because how do you get into that much debt? But the truth is, I'm not stupid. I'm actually quite skilled. I'm in what you would say is investments. The same thing you find in Matthew 25, where the king gives out talents to everybody and they go and they spend it and they make the money and bring it back. And actually, I was really good at it. It started out with 1 talent, and then 1 talent became 5, and then 5 talents. No, it didn't become 10, it became 50, and then 150. And then 250, and then 400. And then, when you're kind of on a roll and things are going really, really well, you start to take a few more risks. And so it got a bit risky. And then I had my first loss. Went from 400 talents back down to 50 talents. But the issue was I needed that money, needed to be able to invest it. So I went and I spoke to other people who were investing. I took my portfolio with me, showed them what I'd achieved and told them, look, if you lend me a little bit of money, you are going to make it back and more. And I wasn't lying. They made their money back. All of a sudden I had 400 talents and now it's 800 talents. Then we're moving on to 1,600 talents, 2,000 talents. And then again, you make a loss. But there's a difference when you're losing 200 talents to when you're losing 900 talents. But again, I trusted myself. Back to what I could do, went and spoke to these people again and said, I know what has happened. I know I owe you some money, but hey, if you trust me, you will get it back and more. And I was right. 1,600 talents became 3,000 talents. Then 4,000 talents, then 5,000 talents. Then I made another big loss again, about 3,000 talents I lost. Owing people all this money, and I was working to get it back, but things hadn't gone back on the right track again, and I found myself just getting more and more in debt. Having to promise people that no, the money will be coming back. Don't worry, this next deal is going to bring it all together. But it never happened. Things got so bad that I stopped checking my bank account. Just kept on grinding, trying to find a way that I could actually make this money back. Not even looking at where I was or what was going on, but hoping against hope that the king would never come back and say, hey, I need that money. But then the rumors started that he was going to ask for his money back, that he wanted everyone to bring back their investments and give him what was his. I hoped it was only a rumor until the letter dropped on my doorstep. You know, when you get to that stage of life where letters are never a good thing. Nothing you ever really want to see. And so I opened it up and it gave me the date and the time right there were things I hadn't seen for a long time, exactly how much I owed him, 10,000 talents. Now, you have to understand how big that is. See, in the text we read, it said about $100,000. And I know for some of you, $100,000, you know, if you work hard enough, maybe you'll be able to make that. But no, it's different than that. You see, the talent was the biggest denominator of money we had. And the word which is translated 10,000 is the word myriad. It's the biggest number that we could describe. I owed more money than anybody had ever owed. We're talking in the trillions. There is no way that I can pay this back. And so I'm stressing. I don't know what I'm going to do, but this date is coming closer and closer. I have prayer meetings with my family. If I'd have been here, I'd have been at that 3 a.m. prayer meeting, asking God to help me out, do something. But that day kept coming closer and closer. And the night before, I couldn't sleep. Just found myself not able to work out, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? And so I got up in the morning and I said goodbye to my family like I was never going to see them again. Because potentially I wasn't. And so I find myself at the king's palace with everybody else who has got to give their money back. People came with beautiful garments, truckloads, loads of money, everything they had to return. And I was just there with my 2 hands. And so what he did is that he would call people forward one by one. And they'd call out their name. They'd read out how much they owe. And they'd say to them, how are you going to pay it back? And for some people, things went well. They just gave what they had invested back and the king was happy. For other people, things didn't go so well. And finally, my name was called. I stepped forward. They read out how much I owed. 10,000 talents. I wasn't even looking up because, you don't want to make eye contact on a thing like that. But I could hear the people around me audibly wince. 10,000 talents. And then the question came, how do you plan to pay it back? And so I did the best thing I could under the circumstances. I stayed silent. Then the question came again. How do you plan to pay it back? And I still did the best thing I could under the circumstances. I stayed silent. Other people weren't silent though. You could hear the whispering and the talking. This is insane. There is no way he can pay this back. And I think the king decided to put me out of my misery when he said, fine, arrest him and take him to prison. And that's what I was expecting. I mean, I couldn't pay the money back. I was in this situation. Things weren't going well for me. But then the king continued. And I want you to go down to his house and get his wife and his children and take them and they will be slaves. And then go through his house and take all his stuff and sell all his possessions. And that can be the contribution that he makes to pay me my money back. There, I couldn't take it. They were coming to arrest me, and I just found myself on the floor just before the king begging, saying anything I could. Please, give me more time. I will pay you back. Now, obviously, I can't pay him back, but you know how it goes. I had to ask for anything. Just a little bit longer. I will work for you the rest of my life. Please do not do this to my family. Don't do this to my children. Please, just give me more time. They dragged me off the floor and were about to take me out when the king said, stop. And his voice had changed. And I hoped around 10% that maybe he was going to say, yes, you can have more time. I'll give you another 6 months to try and pay it back. But he said, you know what? It's all forgiven. Forget the debt. It's okay. You can go free to your family and live your life. The room was silent. I was shocked. Everybody else was shocked. The soldiers were shocked. I shook them off and left, and I went straight outside and went to Jacob's house. Banged on his door. And as Jacob opened his door, I grabbed him by the throat and I said, pay me the money that you owe me. Pay it now. And Jacob said to me, look, I don't have it. Please, please be merciful to me. Give me 6 months. I will pay you back. And I said, Jacob, you've had 3 years now. You can't pay me this money that you owe me. Jacob, I have been patient enough. Now consequences have to happen. And so I dragged him out, took him down to the authorities, explained the situation to them. They arrested him and they put him in prison until he could pay me. Now I know that most of you are thinking, what a heartless man. But I want to tell you I did nothing wrong. The authorities arrested him because he owed me money. And let me tell you a bit about Jacob that the story doesn't tell you. Yes, it says he owed me 100 denarii, which was a couple months' wages. And maybe it's not a lot, but he'd owed me for a while. A few months ago, Jacob had a party for his wife. I can tell you it cost more than 100 denarii. It was a big birthday. A special birthday. I didn't get an invite, obviously, because you don't invite the people you owe money to a party you shouldn't be throwing. But I'd heard about it. And Jacob was the kind of guy who liked to be an early adopter of everything. See, anything new was coming out, Jacob had it straight away. In fact, that's why he borrowed money from me. Something had come out, he wanted it, he came to me when things were going better. I said, hey, no problem, here's 100 denarii, you can do what you want with it. But that had been 3 years ago. And guess what? For 3 years, I'd barely seen Jacob. Every time I caught a glimpse of him, he would run away. I'd call him, wouldn't answer my calls. I'd send him messages, no response. Jacob was a ghost. All this time, he promised me that he would get the money back to me within 6 months, and we are 3 years later. And I had to let him know that I'm not the one. You can do that with other people. You can take them for fools. You can mess about with them, but you don't play like that with me. You see, we made an agreement, and I'm a guy who is happy to be kind and generous. You know what? If Jacob had come to me and found me and said, hey, I'm struggling, can we make a payment plan? I'd have been okay with that. I could have done that for him, but he didn't even bother to find me. I had to find him, grips him up just to make sure he didn't close the door in my face. And now he's begging, oh, please give me more. You've had 3 years. You could have paid me back that money ages ago. It wasn't an issue. And so I didn't do anything wrong. In fact, I think if most of you were in my situation, you'd have been less patient. Jacob would have been in prison after the first year. Forget 3 years. I was actually gracious. Now, the other thing the story didn't tell you is that the reason that I wanted the money was because after everyone had heard about my story, people wanted to interview me. And I wanted to go and get some new clothes. I wanted to go and celebrate with my family. It wasn't anything bad. I just wanted to live life. And here's Jacob trying to take me for a fool, and he needed to know that you can't do that. Try it with anybody else, but don't try it with me. So I'm going home now, more angry than relieved after everything that has happened. And I get home and I hear a knock on the door. And when I open it, it's the king's guards, and they say to me, the king wants to see me. Now, obviously, I thought, maybe the king wanted to do like a 2-on-2 interview, just me and him and some reporters, and he could talk about what kind of worker I was, why it was that he felt I deserved to be forgiven. He could give his perspective, I could give mine. And so I went there and I went with them. And when I entered the room, the king's manner had changed. He said to me, you evil servant. Now, I was confused because obviously he'd forgiven me the debt. We were good. He told me I could go home. Everything was all right. And now he's calling me evil. But then he went on and he said, I forgave you that debt. So he hadn't forgotten. But how is it that you couldn't find it in your heart to forgive your fellow servant? And there I kind of saw the problem. He went on, okay, if that's how you want to be, if that's how you want it, if you want justice rather than mercy, I'll give you the same energy. Take him. Send him to prison. He can go there and he can be tortured until he pays back the debt. And so now, here I am, in prison, being tortured probably for the rest of my life, because there is no way anyone in my family is going to find trillions of dollars. All because of Jacob. Well, not all because of Jacob, more all because of me, but Jacob was involved in it. But I learned something from this whole incident. I learned first and foremost that I did do something wrong. See, it wasn't wrong for me to go and find Jacob. It wasn't even wrong for me to ask him for the money back he owed me. But when he pleaded for mercy, I really should have thought about the mercy that I'd just received. When he pleaded with me to give him more time, I really should have recognized that there was nothing special about me why the king forgave me. The same way as Jacob, I had messed up. And the king had been merciful to me, and so I should have been merciful to Jacob. The real issue was that I refused to pass on what I had received. I had refused to share forgiveness. I had refused to give to others what the king had given to me. You can't just receive forgiveness. You don't get forgiven, I learned, because you deserve it. You don't get mercy because God looks at you and says, you know what? This is for you. You are someone who is going to do great things with the mercy that I give you, because it wouldn't be mercy. It's mercy because we don't deserve it. And I can tell you 100% Jacob did not deserve it. But I also recognize that neither did I. I guess the big lesson I've learned from all of this is that the ways that I am willing to forgive will be the same way that God will forgive me in the end. The ways that I am willing to forgive will be the same way that God will forgive me in the end. Same energy.
Thanks for listening to the Script Pod from Acts Church. To learn more about Acts or what's coming up, visit weareacts.co.uk or give us a follow on Instagram at weareactschurch. Don't forget to subscribe or share this message if it's been helpful. Thanks for being with us.